In celebration of the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movie coming out, I'll be re-uploading my attempt at a video about Rise of the Planet of the Apes that I tried making a couple months back, but after over a week of editing and then almost another of getting copyright claimed, which is why I'm only using pictures here, I decided to put it off. But the new Kingdom movie kinda reset the spark to make it again. So here's a video explaining how Rise of the Planet of the Apes could have been prevented. Also, no spoilers because I haven't seen Kingdom yet. One of my all-time favorite characters across fiction is Caesar from the Planet of the Apes trilogy. His development, his characterization, his rivals, his motivations are just amazing foundations for his perfectly written character. And honestly, I'll probably do a video in the future just talking about the perfect character that he is. But what I want to talk about in this video is the circumstances that led to the defining of his character, which was the first movie, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and how the circumstances of that movie could have been prevented. I know that what happened in the first movie was a plot device, but still, I just want to talk about how all this stuff could have been avoided. The main reason for all of this to occur was because Genesis Laboratories were working on a genetically engineered retrovirus that would be a cure for dementia, specifically Alzheimer's disease. The virus would be called ALZ-112. They would capture and use apes, specifically bonobos and chimpanzees, to test the virus on them. The virus would be able to repair brain cells and even enhance them, and as a result would make the apes smarter. After an incident with a female chimp named Bright Eyes, resulting in her needing to be taken out in front of some board members that were witnessing the promising results of the virus, they would all back out and it would ruin any chance of the ALZ-112 to be developed any further. The project would be shut down because of it. They had believed that she had turned aggressive as a side effect of the treatment. Turned out, Bright Eyes was actually pregnant and had given birth. How did they not realize that a chimp was pregnant? I have no idea. And that's one of the points I'll talk about later in this video. The baby chimp will be taken on by Will Rodman. Will Rodman specifically worked very hard on his treatment because of his father, Charles Rodman, who has Alzheimer's. Will and his father noticed how smart the chimp was around a couple days old, and he was named Caesar after Julius Caesar. Throughout the 3 years that Caesar was kept at home, he showed incredible intelligence at such a young age. It turned out that Caesar had actually inherited the effects of the ALZ-112. The purpose of the virus was to repair damaged brain cells, but since he didn't have any damaged brain cells to begin with, it enhanced his brain much more than the average chimp. Because of Charles's worsening conditions of Alzheimer's, Will would sneak in vials of the virus and had secretly injected his father with it, and literally the next morning, his father was up playing the piano like he once did, perfectly, and it seemed as if the dementia had been reversed and even cured. But unfortunately, after 5 years, Charles's body would develop antibodies and it would actually resist and fight back against the virus. This caused Charles to end up crashing his neighbor's car, and Caesar would attack the neighbor in defense of Charles, resulting in Caesar being taken away to a primate shelter. Charles's Alzheimer's had actually rapidly declined much faster than normal. This caused Will to reveal to his boss that he had been secretly using the virus on his father, but he grew resistant, even after 5 whole years of it working perfectly, and he had actually developed another virus that was stronger. Stephen had allowed for retrials to test this new version of it called ALZ-113. They tested this new virus on a bonobo called Koba. Koba had actually been experimented on before, and this would actually cause the beginning of the end of humanity. When Koba was being administered the new virus, it seemed that he purposefully knocked off the mask of Robert Franklin, who would become the patient zero of the simian flu. He'd end up infecting Will's neighbor, who was a pilot, and this would essentially wipe out humanity, and the next 2 films will be about Caesar's life and the result of this outbreak. Now, how could all this have been prevented? Let's talk about why Will needed to sneak the virus to inject his father, and why he needed to develop the second virus, which was when Bright Eyes broke into the boardroom and needed to be taken out. Bright Eyes wasn't reacting aggressively but only defensively, as she had just given birth to baby Caesar. Now, a genetics laboratory keeping a chimpanzee captive, how did no one notice that this chimp was pregnant? Surely they'd have vets that would do checkups on the apes, right? Needing to see if an ape caught the flu, or if it ate something bad, or if it injured itself or something. No one noticed that a chimp was pregnant? They do say that chimps carry smell when they're pregnant, so it might not be noticeable, but I imagine a highly funded genetics laboratory would have some way of knowing if a chimp was pregnant. There's also the scene of when they needed to bring out Bright Eyes, and they did it in possibly the worst way ever. It's obvious she didn't want to leave her cell, and was even willing to get violent if she was forced out of it. If I'm tasked with bringing a chimp out of its confinement, and it stares into my eyes and flashes its teeth at me, I'm leaving that fucking thing alone. Also, I imagine the smarter chimps would be more cooperative than a regular one, so if I'm dealing with an animal that was cooperative with me before, and all of a sudden it's behaving like this, instead of forcing that dangerous animal that could rip me in half out of its cell, I'm going to do the smart thing and leave it alone and try to find out why it's behaving like that. During the board meeting, it's explained that this virus can repair damaged brain cells, like neurogenesis. With this, they can heal the effects that Alzheimer's has on the brain, and there is a lot of potential to this. If you figure out how to physically regenerate the brain, you can potentially heal the other types of dementia, like vascular dementia, frontotemporal, Lewy body, etc. And there's also brain injuries, like horrible traumatic brain injuries, strokes, oxygen deprivation, etc. Probably even rabies. And I'm not talking about getting freshly bit by a rabid animal. I'm talking about showing symptoms. If you show symptoms of rabies, you're done. I'm talking about foaming at the mouth, not drinking a drop of water type symptoms. With this advancement, you could potentially cure these ailments. Finally having a solution to such a life-ending disease that, despite the fact that humanity has known about for over 100 years, still has no valid treatment, and other ailments that happens to the brain. Now, Bright Eyes would end up interrupting the board meeting and had to be taken out in front of everyone, and this would cause the board members to back out of the project. I understand that this may have been pretty traumatizing to the board members, but if I'm one of those members, and I see the other members back out of funding an actual treatment that can treat and cure millions of people, yeah, I'm not letting them leave that room. That project would have been fully funded for right there. So after this whole thing happens, Stephen Jacobs has the rest of the apes euthanized. Robert would discover that Bright Eyes had actually given birth and was only defending Caesar. But because she was locked out of her cell, she was then scared and was only defending herself. Why didn't he say anything? Why did Will not say anything? Surely there must have been at least one person, one board member, who would have understood the very logical explanation as to why this wild animal was acting this way. This would have proved there was no side effect of the ALZ. This genuinely would have prevented a lot of things. So because of these preventable circumstances, Will was forced to steal some of the ALZ in a last attempt to heal his father. And it worked. It worked amazingly. Literally a night and day difference in his father. His father Charles was a musician and a pianist, and in the morning, Will wakes up to his father playing the piano perfectly. He checks on his father, and Charles is as clear as a person can possibly be. This is treating dementia, by the way, and it seems that Charles was around the middle stages of this disease, and for this quick of a recovery is insane. I can't even recover from a sore throat or dry sinuses in just one night. So Charles's dementia is now basically cured. Will seems to have kept track of his cognition, and in the next 5 years, it seems that Charles showed zero side effects to the treatment, until at the 5-year mark, after Caesar has a little existential crisis about him being a pet and what he truly is, Charles's dementia unfortunately came back, and it seems to have rapidly progressed faster than usual. Will takes a blood sample and it shows Charles's body is now fighting back against the ALZ112 virus. He's becoming immune to the treatment, which makes me wonder why none of the scientists seem to have thought of the possibility of someone growing immune to the treatment. But it's still impressive that it was able to fully treat Charles for a good 5 years before it started becoming less effective, because a lot of people can grow resistant to their medicines in less than half that time. His girlfriend would know the truth about everything, and I just wanted a second to talk about this one scene. This scene kind of pissed me off because there's the trope of one character trying to convince the other character of not doing something because it's like trying to control something uncontrollable, or using nature to control nature, or playing God. Playing God? Not trying to get into the topic of religion, but I think trying to cure millions of people and save their loved ones, the stress of it is not playing God or controlling nature at all. I was honestly thinking of even making a whole video about it, because in War of the Planet of the Apes, the Colonel mentions how creating ALZ was trying to control and defy nature, and nature punished humanity. Curing ailments that happen in the body naturally is the furthest thing from whatever negative thing anyone says about it. Sicknesses are natural. Animals literally try to help treat other animals that are sick. Are those animals playing God or controlling nature? I can understand why people would believe in this idea, but I just wanted to get it off my chest. Anyways, so because of Charles's rapid development in his dementia and the fact that he's unsupervised, he tries to take his neighbor's car for a drive because he thought he was late for work. His neighbor Douglas rips him out the car and begins berating him, while Caesar believes that Douglas is attacking him. He would then take it too far by straight up biting off his finger and then realizing the damage he's done and needing to be taken away by a primate shelter. Which I gotta ask, why did no one supervise Charles? I'm pretty sure Dave Skylark can afford a nurse as soon as possible. I get that because of his cognitive improvement, he was probably not eligible to be taken care of by a caretaker, but with his rapid cognitive decline, I assume at least Will's girlfriend, Caroline, would have maybe taken a day off to supervise Charles, preventing Caesar from going apeshit for the first time in his life, which would have prevented him from being thrown in the shelter and convincing a bunch of other apes to rebel with him, thus preventing this. There's also another factor into why humanity fell. The sheer incompetence of these buffoons running the shelter. There's like, what, 3 people running this whole thing? A big factor that resulted in this whole thing was just how they constantly underestimated how strong an ape really is. Like, how smooth-brained do you have to be to try to 1v1 a male chimp that already doesn't like your ass, and then threaten a bunch of other chimps too with a baton? So, unsurprisingly, he doesn't last too long. If they had been more uptight with securing the area to keep animals that are many times stronger than a grown man, that are also very smart and very social, from breaking out, it would have 100% made a difference. But there are shelters just like this in real life, so I'm not too surprised. After this, when Will and the other scientists are testing the new virus on Koba, and Koba knocks off Robert's mask, he becomes patient 0 of the simian flu. Let me tell you this. If I saw one of my scientists taking a good dose of this new, stronger virus I cooked up that I have no idea how it would react with him, I would have locked his ass in that chamber. He was the first human to get hit with the ALZ-113, the first human and the first human to take it without having any prior brain damage. Why did no one think to quarantine him? Why did no one think of studying him to see the effects? To see if he grew smarter like it did with the chimps? Why didn't he quarantine himself even after sneezing blood? Even if he was not aware of the virus causing this, if I started sneezing blood in general, even after inhaling a dose of this weird chemical, I'm not going to expose myself to other people, especially to a pilot. Yeah, I know he didn't know that Douglas was a pilot, but still, out of all people, that's a crazy coincidence, and it was so perfectly set up. God, I love this trilogy. So, recognizing that a chimp was pregnant and was the reason why it acted aggressive, also knowing the body language of the animal you're supposed to take care of, not underestimating its physical power, not trying to force it out of its cell, explain to the higher ups the perfectly logical reason as to why it acted the way it did, all of that, in itself, even one of those scenarios could have changed the whole timeline and prevented Chimp Jesus, and with further research could have had the ALZ be perfectly developed, and Caesar would have lived the rest of his life happy with Will, Caroline, and Charles. Then there's considering the fact that someone could grow immune to the virus and prescribing them immunosuppressants to allow the virus to work, to prevent the resistance against it, which if you take that into account could have prevented Will from needing to create a stronger version of the virus if he was able to give his father some sort of immunosuppressants. Yeah, there are of course side effects from suppressing the immune system, but handling the side effects of suppressing an immune system is about a good 1,000 times easier than handling the effects of moderate to late stage Alzheimer's. So yeah, there was a lot of variables that could have been controlled to prevent the near extinction of the human race and could have prevented kingdom. Now look, I'm not trying to hate on this movie. I'm not trying to make this movie seem dumb or anything like that. I love this movie. I love this trilogy, and everything that I said that could have been prevented, I love them as well. These aren't complaints. I'm not hating on this franchise at all. I love it with my whole heart. I love the fact that the humans were so incompetent. They were the smartest thing on the planet, treating a disease that scientists today can't even treat, even after over 100 years of knowing its existence, and yet they made the dumbest decisions. I love that. It made the human characters, to me, seem more human. It's just that when I rewatched Rise, I stayed up until like 1 in the morning just talking to myself about how so many things could have been prevented, but I still love them. I have so much love for this trilogy, and I'm really excited to see the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Thanks for watching, join my Patreon, Tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know what you want to see next. I got links to my social description. Please be kind to yourselves and each other. Thanks for watching.